What was something that happened to you as a child that you didn't realize was scary, creepy, dangerous until you got older? Reddit says, my family station wagon blew a flat in the middle of the night on I-95, as we exited the city of Miami. I was 5 years old, and riding along with my mom, grandparent, sibling and that who was driving, when the tire blew. It was the 80s when the tire blew. Everyone freaked out a bit. For some reason my dad kept driving on the flat, even though we were traveling at a high speed. Eventually the tire wore down or fell off, and we were riding on the rim, sparking down the freeway, in the middle of the night. I remember the energy in the car turned to fear, but something was off. I was told when I was older that my dad saw a man, in the center median, throw a strip of nails, attached to something into the middle of the highway, which might add could not avoid. Turns out people were using this method to rob, and carjack highway drivers, in the middle of the night. My dad somehow was aware of what was happening, and responded accordingly by not stopping to change the tire for several miles. Luckily we had a full-size spare. We changed the tire several miles down the road, and made it home safely. TLDR, my family was not carjacked, and who knows what else, because my dad rolled with the punches. My sister's boyfriend tried to kiss me goodnight, and he stuck his tongue in my mouth. I bit his tongue, cause well I didn't understand it. I was 12 and pretty sheltered about that stuff. I realized after I made out with my first boyfriend what he'd been trying to do. Edit, since people are asking, my sister was 5 years older than me, so she was 17, if I remember right. He was a year younger, so he would been about 16. She never found out about it. They broke up after a while, but not before she lost her virginity to him, and had a big pregnancy scare. I'm still not sure why he thought it was a good idea. Dude was just weird, I guess. And massive family problems last on you. He was a bisexual man, engaged to a lady with 2 kids, and another on the way. I still have no idea why it happened. Me and my sister hung out at his mother's place a lot, because my parents were busy with volunteer firefighting. They didn't know that we were basically being used as living house cleaners for this guy's mother. Nanny was supposed to pick me up for an after school thing I was doing. She was a bit late, so I decided to walk. Her fingers. The school was 6 miles from my house, and I had to cross 2 overpasses to get there, which I did while lugging my stuffed backpack. I made it about 5 miles before getting too tired and resting next to the sidewalk near the local mall. Then this guy on a motorcycle asks if I wanted a ride. I said yes, because I'm tired of walking, and the surprisingly creepy home stretched to my house, and hopped on his bike. We ended up talking a bit, and I found out he was an armored truck driver named Ray. He dropped me off at my house, and that was the last I saw of him. My parents didn't find out until a few years later, when he showed up at the house, asking for some cash to buy his kid a Christmas present, mentioning how he helped me out that time. I had a kindergarten teacher who always gave me extra attention. He will bring me little gifts, hold my hand, walk me to the bathroom. After a few weeks my mom started asking me questions, and I told her how he would take me into the coat closet for special talks, and would give me lots of hugs. My mom took me over to where my dad was working and had me tell him, and then we all drove up to the school, and my dad beat the crap out of him. The next day I was put in a different classroom, and I didn't see him at school anymore. When I was in 6th grade, I walked into a math class for the first time at the start of the year, and he was the teacher. It all just kind of clicked in my brain when I saw him, what he had done and might have tried to do, and why my dad beat him up. Needless to say, I went to the principal and made him call my dad, and when they told us that since nothing was ever done legally and all, that he would keep teaching, and he was the only math teacher my dad put in a different school. A relative was in the hospital, and I didn't want to go in, so my parents let me stay in the car. A woman was in the car next to ours. Waiting in the driver's seat, a man walked up to her car door and pulled it open. I was young enough not to remember why we were at the hospital, but what he said to her is still clear in my memory. "You're gonna drive me back to your place and we are gonna do it." I remember her yelling something along the lines of "what the fuck now," and then they started fighting. I got scared and hid where your feet go, in the backseat, really not wanting this man to see me. Eventually I heard the car leave. I have no idea what happened, and I never told my parents. When I told a friend, he said he was probably her family member, and she was crazy. That discouraged me from telling anyone. He wasn't there and didn't hear the man's vicious tone, and the woman's terrified. I grew up in Detroit, and because violence were the norm, I didn't realize how terrible some of the stuff I witnessed was. I even thought cool, a good story to tell the kids at school. One particular story is that when my neighbors across the street, a couple and the sister of the couple got into a very violent fight. There was so much blood, the husband or boyfriend was beating his lady and kicking her all over her porch. Then when her sister came home, midway she's like hell. Noran gets a 2x4 from the alley, and starts beating the crap out of the guy. He leaves and gets something else and starts beating her. Don't Lord, this is serious, and the girlfriend is just trying to break it up, but she's getting hit, and they're all really beaten up. I lived with my grandparents. These sweet old classic Mexican types, from the country, and we just all go sit on the porch, and watch what the crazy white trash neighbors are doing, and it never occurred to me to call 911, or do anything. When the cops came, I remember thinking that calling them was a good idea. When I was younger, we moved into a house in the woods. It wasn't completely finished yet, no screens on the windows and paved driveway, just dirt and rocks, etc. We also had a huge wolf spider infestation. Apparently the house was built on the headquarters of all wolf spiders. In the US, wolf spiders can vary somewhat in appearance. Some are gray and very hairy, some are brown and more smooth. Freaked out when I saw one at first, but then I thought they look really cool, so as long as they don't bite me, it's okay. Anyways, eventually I just got used to them. Sometimes I'd see a baby wolf spider, and just sort of play with it. Otherwise just let it be around while I do whatever, ride it as a child. Either way, they were everywhere. It wasn't until much later that I saw what young wolf spiders really looked like, and the things I had been playing around with the whole time were brown recluses. When I was 10, I was given some money to go to gas station to get some soda and candy for me and my mom. When I was walking to the store, a Mexican in her old car came driving real slow like. He asked me if I wanted a ride. I said shit yes. He starts asking me about school and stuff, starts getting weird. It smells awful in his car later on. I realized it was black velvet, so we are at a stoplight across from the gas station. I run to the gas station, and started jumping on the tube, to make the bell go off. The old man who owns it came out and threatened to beat my ass until he realized the Mexican was staring at me from his car, while he yells some choice expletive he's at the Mexican, and tell me to go inside. Old man calls my mom, and she told me to walk home and don't drop our sodas. I could have been kidnapped. If not for the surly old racist goodness. Where do I start? I've been approached 4 times to hop into cars, didn't think anything of it, and just said no. A lady once tried to coax us across the road with some lollies. Lucky our mum was there. I nearly drowned while trying to keep up with the adults in the ocean. I jumped off the roof of our house onto our trampoline. Definitely not a smart idea. My mum nearly killed us all when she drunk. We forgot to turn the gas stove off before passing out. I was in a taxi with my mum when a taxi almost took off with me inside. When mum hopped out, my brother started a fire when he was 2 and our newborn. I was in my cot and he snuck matches into my room, started a fire, then hid in the cupboard. I was in a serious head-on car incident, and thought my dad was doing donuts. We had someone break into our house that we just moved into. They had bats, etc. My brother had me in a cupboard while my parents kicked us. Never mess with a feisty Asian lady, and naked fat man. Oh, what else? Oh, the first time swimming in a beach in Australia. I swam with the swarm of glue bottles. I had stings everywhere, including inside my throat. I'm sure there are plenty more. I was groomed into a cult by my extended family, and didn't realize it was wrong or anything, until I was handed over to my rapist as part of rite. It's been a little over 25 years, and as an adult I fucking cannot set foot in a church. Albania churchy people without panicking. This might be a little long. When I was still a toddler, around 3 or so, my mum and dad took my sister, 10 years old, and I on a trip to Toronto. We were towing a small trailer. And I guess it got a flat for some reason. My parents unhooked the trailer, spread a blanket and left my sister and I to watch it while they drove to a repair shop. Note we were on the 401 highway, which is a divided 70 miles per hour, at the time speed limit 4-lane freeway. There couldn't have been a repair shop for 60 or more miles. They took off for what seemed like hours. Cold beam. I was 3, so we are sitting there, and a station wagon pulls to the shoulder and comes to a stop. By the time I noticed, a middle-aged man had scooted to the passenger side of his car, opened the door, was lacking it for all it's worth. I just stared at him because I was curious, and my sister said, "Don't look and he'll go away." I thought she said don't tell. Okay, asterisk, a while he'll go away, so I pretended to cover my eyes and stared through my fingers, because I thought she wanted him to stay. In any case, he finally finished up and left. But came back after a fair while. He must have taken the next off-ramp, and doubled back, because he showed back up again doing the same thing. By then I had figured out my sister was afraid, so I tried not to look as much either. I should have mentioned that I'm female. He must have left, and after a long time my parents came back. For us, that part is all hazy. I just remembered a weird man. At no point was I frightened, because of my trust in my sister. When we got home and we went out to play, I told all her friends that I saw a man stretching his dink, which they found hilarious. I only realized many years later how much danger we were in and how irresponsible my parents were. All I can think now is my poor sister. A man pointed a gun at me when I was 6. I was in the backyard playing when 2 men walked by. I don't remember any details of their appearances, just silhouettes. They stopped and one of the men pointed a pistol at me. I didn't feel any fear, but I almost nonchalantly stepped behind the nearest bush. Like I knew what a gun was from TV, but didn't really grasp the idea of death as something that could actually happen to me. One of them said, "Oh, never mind," or something in a similar tone, and they walked away. I was outside in the driveway, while my parents were working in the yard. Out back, all of a sudden a car drives by real slow, and stops. This guy gets out and starts walking towards me, saying, "Hi, where are your parents?" and that he has something for me. I got up and ran to the backyard, and my father sees me running and confronts the guy. I remember him saying he was a child toy/book creator, and wanted to show me things. It still creeps me out to this day. What a weird guy. That was not creepy, but a near-death experience, caused by stupidity. When I was 7 or 8, me and a couple of buddies ran wild in the local woods. Every day our parents just let us out of the house in the morning and expected us back for lunch and dinner. Apart from that, we weren't supervised at all. We had our camps and our favorite climbing trees, wasps' nests that we kicked a box, have found porno Max, and all the other things that he used to find in the woods. In the 1970s, one day Joe had stolen a box of matches from home, so we decided to make a bonfire. A development company years before had tried to make a subdivision in the woods, but had run out of money after a few roads were built, so there were no houses, but there was a big expanse of concrete to build it on. We were dumb, but not dumb enough to burn down a forest. We piled up kindling and sticks, and made a good old fire that we took turns in running across, trying to light the soles of our shoes. Then we added logs until we had a pretty sizable blaze going. This started to get boring, so we scouted around the woods for other stuff to burn. Someone threw old paint can onto the fire, and after a few minutes, the lid burst off with a satisfying drop. Wanting to repeat that fun experience, we looked around some more, and eventually someone found a mostly empty gasoline can. It was the old metal kind, with a hefty lid. We threw it in the middle of the fire, and stood around waiting for the lid to pop off, like with the paint can. It sat there for a long time. And then, just as we were getting bored, and about to go do something else, it blew a flaming smoke ring. This was amazing. We gathered closer to see what else it would do, and the next thing, there was a flash of light, and a huge boom, and everything went silent, and black. We had all been blown flat on our backs, and were just coming round trying to work out what had happened. When we heard adults shouting and the sound of running feet coming from the edge of the woods, our ears were ringing, our faces were scorched, our hair and eyebrows were singed, like in a Charlie Chaplin movie. But we couldn't possibly allow ourselves to get in trouble. So we picked ourselves up, and limped away, and hid in the woods watching, while the grown-ups cleared up our disaster area. I was 3 at the time and halfly older brothers, they were putting a flashlight in their cheek and laughing at the reddish glow it caused. I was the annoying little brother. So they didn't let me try, so instead I decided to put my mouth around, and I'd like that was plugged in. I'm 25 now, and still have a scar inside my cheek from the shock I got. Okay. So I knew it was dangerous then, but it saved a life. Well, every few years during the summer, my family would ever get together, at a timeshare, so one of those vacations. A couple of my cousins who had to both be either 8 or 9 are playing on the back deck, of one of the housing units we had, so there's this fencing around the sides of the deck. And after one of the sites is one of those old black Weber charcoal grills, so my one cousin Jilla is chasing after the other one Lenny. Well, I hopped over the fencing, and was running down the yard when Lenny tried to catch up, but Lenny wasn't all that nimble. Lenny ended up losing his balance, while trying to scale the fencing, which was about waist height, as Lenny is falling back. I see him kick the Weber grill. Lenny is now on the floor on his back, and the weather was about to fall on him. I run across the deck and push the grill out of the way, it hits the floor, everyone is gasping, and diverse ding Lenny, or thanking me. Well, one of my aunts noticed that the charcoal spilling out of the grill is still red, meaning the grill was on. At that moment my right hand, the one I used to push the grill, swells up like a damn football. Lenny was so freaked out and thankful that when we all had settled down, and I got my handler load up and wrapped, he held my cards as the rest of the cousins played one intense game of Fast forward to 2008, Lenny was killed in Iraq while serving in Operation Iraqi Freedom. At his wake I told this exact story and I broke down. Like full-blown meltdown. If you like this video, please subscribe and don't forget to leave us a comment. What you liked the best?